China is threatening military force in Hong Kong, and protesters are waving American flags. What does this mean? What should the U.S. do? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. There have been massive protests happening in Hong Kong over the past 2 months. We spent 3 weeks there in mid-June for our other show, China Uncensored. Since we left, it's gotten even more serious. Over the last few weeks, police have been getting increasingly aggressive, including launching tear gas at protesters. All I can say is, I'm sure glad I don't have to ride the Hong Kong subway anymore. Everything smells like tears now. On the other hand, that's still better than what the New York subway smells like. But with all those bombs bursting in air, guess whose flag was still there? America. Not only that, Hong Kong protesters have been singing our national anthem. America! Yeah! Freedom is the only way, yeah. Oh, sorry. I meant they were singing the official national anthem.
All the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming.
That's pretty cool. And it makes me wonder, how come Hong Kong protesters know America's national anthem better than some American professional singers?
All the rampart we watch through the twilight's last gleaming.
Anyway, we can all agree, this flag-waving and national anthem singing in Hong Kong is pretty great.
The waving of flags, the singing of our anthem. What does that tell you?
Obviously, it means Hong Kongers love America, and they're fighting for our values.
They are hailing the American flag as a beacon of freedom.
It has to be America that really stands for democratic principles and rule of law and civil rights and human rights.
What's that, Shelley? Okay, fine. Let's hear what someone who's actually there has to say. Wilfred Chan spoke with some of those Hong Kong protesters waving American flags and noted that they are actually a very, very small minority, ignored by most protesters, but nonetheless get a lot of attention from the media. He said one guy shouted he wanted to provoke the People's Liberation Army to force a U.S. response. Another protester told him he didn't like America, but is convinced appealing to Trump is the only hope. He wanted to get international media attention and felt the flag was the easiest way. So it's not about how great America is, it's about how great American media attention is. Well, media attention received. But would the U.S. actually back Hong Kong if the People's Liberation Army or the People's Armed Police marches in? Chinese police have been gathering near the Hong Kong border for so-called training exercises in a move that's pretty clearly meant to scare Hong Kongers. Well, it turns out U.S. lawmakers have been paying attention, and they vow swift consequences if the Chinese military cracks down in Hong Kong. What's more surprising is that Democratic Congressman Eliot Engel and Republican Congressman Michael McCaul worked together to issue this joint statement. It says, 30 years after the Chinese Communist Party's brutal massacre of peaceful democratic protesters in Tiananmen Square, we are concerned that China would consider again brutally putting down peaceful protests. We urge China to avoid making such a mistake, which would be met with universal condemnation and swift consequences. Now, they don't say what those swift consequences would be, but I can only imagine.
All the ramparts we watch.
Oh, sorry, wrong music.
America, yeah, coming again.
But short of sending in U.S. troops and starting World War III, which the U.S. is extremely unlikely to do, what other consequences could there be? Well, one U.S. senator suggested removing Hong Kong's special trade status if China intervenes in the protests. And there's even some indication that President Trump is willing to link a peaceful resolution in Hong Kong to the trade talks with China. Trump told reporters that it would be much harder for him to sign a trade deal if Chinese leader Xi Jinping did something violent in Hong Kong. And trade might be the most powerful weapon America has right now. See, the Chinese economy has been going through a visible slowdown, and the tariffs have definitely made things harder. Chinese unemployment is up and industrial production is down. This is not good for the Chinese Communist Party's grip on power. If the economy slips, so does their political stability, and they may not want to risk their own stability over Hong Kong. Fortunately, President Donald Trump has a solution. He has the best solutions. Last Wednesday, he tweeted that Xi Jinping is a great leader who very much has the respect of his people, and that he has zero doubt that if President Xi wants to quickly and humanely solve the Hong Kong problem, he can do it. And then he added, Personal meeting ? Leading everyone to wonder what amazing solution Trump would propose if he met face-to-face with Xi Jinping. The media were certainly quick to write articles about it. That is, until the next morning when Trump clarified that tweet. He meant that if Xi Jinping would meet directly and personally with the protesters, there would be a happy and enlightened ending to the Hong Kong problem. I have no doubt. Oh, to be a fly on the wall during that meeting. But it seems like Trump's solution is to let someone else figure out the solution. That's actually wise in this case. After all, no matter how much a small number of protesters wave American flags and sing the national anthem, they don't really want the U.S. to intervene. I mean, the U.S. doesn't have a great history of making other countries better by political intervention. Really, the protesters want America's attention. But once they've gotten America's attention, what do they hope Americans will do? Well, Hong Kong protesters have raised almost $2 million to run an ad campaign in major newspapers around the world. In this full-page ad running in the New York Times, Hong Kong protesters are asking Americans to contact their senators and House representatives to co-sponsor the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. That's a bipartisan bill introduced in Congress by Representatives Jim McGovern and Chris Smith and Senator Marco Rubio. Among other things, it would require the U.S. Secretary of State to certify that Hong Kong had enough autonomy from China to continue to get special treatment from the U.S. government. It's a way for the U.S. government to pressure the Chinese Communist Party to back off from Hong Kong if they still want to benefit from all the ways that the city is an international financial capital. Hong Kong protesters are also asking for the U.S. government to suspend sales of crowd control equipment to the Hong Kong police. That's something the U.K. has already done. And finally, they're asking Americans to bear witness to Hong Kong's fight for freedom and to tell their story, especially if they can no longer do it themselves. Wow, that is heavy. So what do you think of what's going on in Hong Kong? And what should America do? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.